Hi, welcome again. Welcome again. I have this exciting question that I want to answer today. It's so exciting. It says, what teaching styles do you think inspire students to think creatively and solve problems? Great question. And I'm going to answer this question by reading out a story that I wrote. At Build Greenies Learning Hub is the organization we run. I run in Nigeria. I happen to be the founding director of the organization, and we visit public secondary schools in remote areas, helping the students to learn how to learn, helping the teachers to learn how to teach, and strengthening the cognitive skill of the students. Towards we are basically towards a whole formation of the students. We once visited a small school in a rural Nigerian community. The students there were curious but shy, hesitant to voice their thoughts. The teacher, Mr. Ade, that's a pseudonym, by the way, told us his biggest challenge. How do I make these kids think for themselves? How do I teach them to solve problems when all they know is memorization? It's a big problem. A lot of students just want to pass exam, memorize it, put it down in your exam, and that's it. Nobody wants to really know what it is. And that's a problem because education is not part of the society. It's like something new that we are trying to introduce to the society. So students don't own it. They don't even think it's a part of them. The policies, the system is just so far away from the students. And yeah, that's really sad. Instead, education is something that should happen all the time. All right, let me not continue. Let's go back to the question. I'm sorry. How do I teach them to solve problems when all they know is memorization? And so I decided to work with this teacher using different mixed method, creative teaching style. And we asked a question to the students while we're engaging the students. We asked them a question. We said, you students, many a times you've kept sachet water in your refrigerator. And in that same refrigerator, you have, say, fish, a food item, fish in particular, in that same refrigerator. And then you bring out the sachet water one of those days and you try to drink it. And suddenly, it has a taste, it has a smell. It did not have that before you put it in the refrigerator. What do you think happened? The moment we posed that question to the students, they began to think. A lot of them were thinking. Now, what we've done, we've hooked them with something that they know. And at the same time, we are trying to help them to know something that they don't know in a way that would help them to understand it better and faster. It was so exciting. It was an exciting day. They began to think. All of them were giving different reasons. And then I asked them a question. I said, have you heard of diffusion before in your biology class? They all said yes, they've heard of diffusion before. Now I asked them to define what diffusion is. They couldn't because they tried to memorize it. But now I told them, I said, the process of the smell getting into the sachet water, what actually happened there was diffusion. Oh my God. The class erupted. People felt like, what? Oh my God. You mean I know what diffusion is, but I didn't know what diffusion is? That kind of scenario, that kind of situation. And we also had a similar experience where with some junior secondary school students, and we asked them a question. We said, how many of you know what gravity is? How many of you know what the law of gravity is? And none of them could raise their hands. They felt like, what is gravity? We've never heard of that before. Well, don't fault them. It happens because of the environment we have and because of the exposure some of these students have. But as they were all there, so I said, who can think about what gravity is and who can tell us what they think it means? And they started brainstorming. So exciting. You needed to see the students brainstorm instead of the conventional style of just coming into the class. Today, I want to teach you about gravity. And then the teacher start writing notes, students start copying notes. We began to engage them in some really exciting, thought provoking. It was a thought provoking situation. It was so sweet. You could taste it, you could eat it. It was like a sweet apple. You know, really nice. I love it. So they started thinking, and then I asked the student, I said, okay, relax. since they could not find a solution to the problem. I told them, relax. I said, what do you think happens if I throw a stone up? What do you think will happen to the stone? They said it will come down. I said, oh, you know that? I said, how about if I tell you to jump up, can you stay afloat in the air and not come down? They said, no, it's not possible. That if I jump up, I will always come down. I said, really? I said, but you guys don't know what the law of gravity is. Then they were trying to understand what I was saying. Then I said, well, the law of gravity is about, the fact that when you throw something up, it would always come down. That's the way I delivered it to them. And they felt like, oh my God, it was the same expression. Same expression. Like, you mean I know what gravity is, but I just don't know what it is. So a lot of time, the students we think don't know anything, and then we just come into the classroom and then just begin to write. We realize that they know so much. The problem is our delivery and our lack of engagement. Lack of engagement with the students. You are not engaging the students actively. You're not allowing them to actively participate in their learning process. Instead of just coming in and then write on the board and then explanation that probably goes over their head, and then tell them to copy the note, tell them to go do the assignment and come back and write a test, and then they start memorizing and then put it back to you, give it back to you the way you give it back to them, and that's it. Some of them pass, some of them, you know what happens to them. And then you say these students are not serious. Why not let's try some of those methods, simplifying concept and giving it to the students the way they will understand it. And that's not just for sciences alone. I also remember another story where I asked some students, I said, who here knows the meaning of a protagonist? They were art students. I said, who here knows the meaning of a protagonist? All of them, many of them could tell me is, oh, our literature teacher taught us. Our literature teacher taught us. But what is protagonist? Who is a protagonist? What does it mean? They could not explain it. So I didn't feel bad. I mean, that's what you must do as a teacher. You can't start feeling bad. That's why you are their teacher, right? So you should not be shocked that your students don't know some basic things. Don't be. That's why you are their teacher. If they know it, then you shouldn't teach them. So I said, all right, how many of you have seen movies before? I didn't mention any particular movie. I just said movies. And then they all raised their hand. They told me the movies they've seen before. I said, who was the character they loved the most? They began to tell me about the character, describe who they were, describing the main character of the movie. And then they also describe another character that is attacking the main character of the movie. Then I said, do you know what you've just explained to me in your own language? You just explained to me the meaning of a protagonist. And by the way, you also just explained what I did not ask you, an antagonist. So they were looking, so at that point they were looking, they were in shock, and at the same time they were trying to understand what I was saying. Then I told them, I said main character in movies, they are divided into two. We have the protagonist and we have the antagonist. The protagonist is the one you all have just described now, that you all love so much and you want a good ending for the protagonist. But the antagonist is the one attacking the protagonist. Then the students they erupted in a lot of joy. There was just a lot of joy. There's a joy in it when you're able to help the students understand seemingly difficult concepts in a very, simple way and relatable manner. So yeah, that's what you do. So that's one of the teaching style that I think would work. Project based teaching style would work, where you give the student task to do and then they begin to brainstorm. Question based method, just like some of the things just like some of the examples I have shared. Give them a task, provide a problem and tell them to find a solution to it, instead of just writing on the board. Of course, you would have to write on the board, right? You have to give them textbook, you have to give them materials. But instead of you just explaining things over their head, use question-based method, project-based method, so that the students can actively participate in it. And those things, it inspires them a lot, because now when they are responding to it, they are responding to it in their own words, and they are also responding to it accurately with great examples and not just talking. and just giving you definitions of terminologies that they do not even understand. I hope that helps. Catch you in the next video.